After almost 12 months of travel, 17 countries, 4 continents, it's finally time for the last country of my trip, Iceland. After Nepal, I flew over to Italy and then to Istanbul for a few days before I went to Iceland. Iceland is kind of having a moment right now. Travel bloggers are featuring it, it's been on a bunch of TV shows, and I can say the hype is definitely worth it. Iceland is a pretty small island nation, known for its insanely epic landscape and natural features. It's like the ultimate one-upper of the US, and it doesn't even mean to be. Hawaii, you got black sand beaches? Psh, so do I. Volcanoes? I am literally made of them. And I got hot springs, lava fields, horses with good hair, and I'm the size of Ohio. Who can compete with that? No one. No one can compete with that. I stayed at the bus hostel in Reykjavik. The hostel is right across the street from Sad Rental Cars, which is where we'd be getting our rental SUV for the week. The first thing we did was hop around Reykjavik, and then the next day we went to the Black Sand Beach and to Westman Island. And that's where we saw puffins. Everywhere you go in Iceland is out of control beautiful. We were constantly jumping out of the car to take photos, to jump on the moss. It was silly beautiful. Probably one of the most expensive but incredibly awesome things we did while we were in Iceland was called Inside the Volcano, where you're lowered into an actual volcano that erupted 4,000 years ago. You get in this crate essentially, and you are lowered so slowly down into the deep, damp, dark volcano chamber. It just keeps getting prettier and prettier as you go down. The markings on the wall and the details from the explosion are insane. They didn't make this opening for tourists. This was the natural opening made by the volcano 4,000 years ago. It is so vividly colored, and this is all natural. This is not like the caves that I showed you in Holland Bay. This is the real deal.
Look at the wall here.
Oh wow.
Compared to what we have on my right here. Yeah. Totally different. So these formations are the only preserved formations from since the eruption took place. And you can see the stalactites hanging from the roof. This is caused by when the magma is high temperature here, that it just melts the surface, the inside of the crater. This is only formed during the eruption time and then stops.
It's pretty unreal being inside the belly of an ancient volcano. We were able to get out and walk around once we hit ground. It's so crazy to look around all these colors and formations, knowing that nature made this. As we watched the basket raise up and we were left on the volcano floor, I started feeling anxious. We only had a certain amount of time inside the volcano, and it would never be enough to take all the photos and video that I wanted before the basket started to lower back down. It's kind of like how I felt about the end of my trip. After so many miles and so many days, I felt like I was tumbling towards the end, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for that. But then I realized there would never be enough time, and I just needed to focus on the time that I had. I slowed down, I took it all in, and by the time the basket came down, I was ready to go. It's funny how things work like that, huh? We came out of a volcano to an Arctic fox.
You can totally tell this coat is like ready for warm action.
You love raw meat, bland meat.
I mean, what could be a better distraction from deep thoughts than a newly rescued baby Arctic fox? Adding to Iceland's general one-upmanship is the Blue Lagoon. You probably thought that hot springs were cool before you even heard of Iceland, but then you get here and you see this geothermal spa that is located inside of a lava field 20 minutes from the airport. So technically, if you had a layover in the Iceland airport, you could hop a shuttle from the airport to the Blue Lagoon, hang out there for a few hours, and then go back to the airport for your next flight. Just saying. The water is packed full of nutrients and the facilities are high-tech and super cool. It's a don't miss thing in Iceland and a good way to spend the day. So after the Blue Lagoon and a few more nights in Iceland, which actually didn't feel like nights at all because it was 23 hours of daylight, it was finally time for me to hop a flight back to the US. The flight from Iceland to Washington, D.C. is super short and super easy, which is kind of crazy considering how long I've been gone and how far I've been. Coming home after a trip like this is weird and takes a little bit of an adjustment. 1 second you're in constant motion, and the next you're still. I could go on forever about that, but I think for right now, I'm going to just stick with coming home and then my life in LA, and then I'm gonna make a different series that kind of touches on backpacking basics of like adjusting to back home, how to save up for a trip, and all these questions that you guys have been asking. I'm gonna do a quick series on that before I get back into more travels and trips that are coming down along the lines. So let's just gloss over that for now and talk about getting home. I landed in the airport, my parents picked me up, and I hadn't seen them for an entire year. They had a bottle of champagne and snacks in the car, and we drove back to the house that I grew up in. I didn't tell you guys actually why I ended my trip, and it's not because I ran out of money, it's not because I was sick of traveling or I was homesick in any way. But when I was in Bangkok, like back in the day at this point, my best friend had gotten engaged. She was like, well, you know, we're gonna get married sometime in the next year, so you're gonna probably have to come home for that. And that time was July. Yeah, that was it. I didn't run out of money. I didn't feel sick or wanted to come home or anything like that, but wanted to be with my best friend on her wedding day. So I landed 3 days before her wedding, and we had crazy wedding preparations beforehand. She got married, I spoke at the wedding, we all got drunk and had a really good time. I stayed at my parents' house for 2 weeks after that, and then I headed back west. Yep, back to LA. Just like that. It's always bittersweet coming home. At one point, it's amazing. Being home is everything. But on another, it's an end. It's an end to a trip, an end of an era, an end to the adventure of a lifetime. Or is it? Find out more next week, and thanks for watching.